Joining us now, I'll call him the man in the arena this week, our pal, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. Matt, welcome back to the program. First and foremost, I wish I had one of those clap tracks here on the show. I would give you a standing applause and ovation.
No, thank you.
You know, I called and talked to you that day along with the Herrings here. We fully supported what you were doing. Look, I like Mr. McCarthy as a person, but he made promises, not to you, he made promises to the Republican Party and to the American people. The promises weren't kept. He wasn't hardline enough on spending, the Ukraine funding, the border, all the things that are tearing this country down, and you took him to task. You held him accountable, and now your butt's on the chopping block. The floor is yours.
I guess so. Yeah, I just want us to have a budget. You know, the Budget Control Act of 1974 is a federal law that says that we are required to set a budget and then nestle within that budget single subject spending bills that appropriate dollars to the various agencies of government. Since 1996, we have not had a budget and we have not done single subject spending bills. Instead, the swamp of Washington has designed an exquisite system so that no one is really responsible for spending. The lobbyists, the PACs, the special interests, they're all like hogs with their nose down in the trough. And then they redistribute their ill-gotten gains back to members of the leadership in both parties so that they can continue the corrupt racket going. I had hoped for better. And frankly, I wish we had never gotten to this moment. I wish that Speaker McCarthy had been faithful to the agreement he made in January to have these single subject spending bills before the House of Representatives prior to the government running out of money. Because when congressmen are backed up against the politics of a shutdown and veterans may be impacted and military members not getting paid, they're willing to vote in this totally corrupt paradigm where you're taking an up or down vote on the entire government of the United States all at once. So I am demanding better. I am demanding compliance with the law. And if my Republican colleagues don't like that, I guess be offended.
Matt, I got to tell you, we've not heard this kind of honest talk since, that one guy came down the escalator several years ago. Seriously. I mean, you're talking about following the rules. That doesn't happen in Washington, Matt. Are you stupid? Are you crazy? Are you insane? You can't follow the law, and you can't do what's right for us. You're supposed to do what's right for the party and for the lobbyists. I'm so glad you pointed that out. Let's talk about spending, shall we?
Yes.
And remind people, refresh their memory, how far, and I think this is going to be a little dated because my crew recorded it earlier today, but we went to the National Debt website, and we recorded how damn deep we're getting by the second. We're what, 33 plus something trillion in debt? And how much of a deficit are we running this year, Matt? Give us the numbers again.
Well, in the upcoming fiscal year, we will run a $2 trillion annual deficit. That will go to $2.2 trillion in 2025, Jeez. And then it will grow every year thereafter. So we are on a track to $50 trillion in debt. Now, why does this matter to people? Right now, your average American is spending $700 more every month for the exact same goods and services they got last year at the same time. The average American income cannot support the purchase of a home in 99% of U.S. counties right now because interest rates have gotten so high. So you are seeing inflation and you are seeing higher interest rates as a direct consequence of government spending and the growing national debt. We have now gotten to the part of fiscal danger where people are feeling the pain of these things. And so I'm not proposing something radical. No. I'm saying, look, I know that if we just vote up or down on the whole government all at once, all that's going to happen is that it's going to grow. I know that because every year we've done that, the government has grown exponentially. So the only path to put downward pressure is to have open amendments on single subject spending bills, because then if there's some task force the FBI created that's just doing election interference, we can zero that out without zeroing out every other thing in the federal government.
Right. Then people won't feel pressured. And let's talk about that, how that always goes down. I love that you brought that up. Every damn time they take this budget right till the 11th hour, so both sides, no matter who's in charge of the chamber, can look like the hero. We're saving the day. See, we got it funded at the last minute so our troops won't go without. But listen, I'm a vet. I wouldn't want to be active duty right now under this regime any day of the week, and I'd want my damn paycheck. But look, the men and women that serve, they're going to keep serving. They're not going to freak out and walk off the job. And so I hate how the press, and yes, our side and the other side have used that every single time. And you brought up a valid, not a valid point, an amazing point, that this is law since the 70s, and both parties have snubbed their nose at it. All right, we talked a lot of budget. I got so many other questions. Let's switch to the speaker search. Jim Jordan is probably one of the only guys I've seen that's been talked about, throwing their hat in the ring, whatever, that I would consider as far as a member of the Republican Party, I would consider if I was in your shoes having to vote. However, with that said, you know who I'd like to see, because I think in the next 12 months, if you had a Speaker Trump in there, could you imagine the types of bills that would actually get called on the floor for a vote? Could you imagine the discussion for next year's budget between that speaker, meaning Trump, and the alleged President Biden? Oh my, I want to hear your thoughts on who should take this role.
So in divided government, one of the most consequential roles for the Speaker of the House is to be a great negotiator. And unfortunately, we saw with Speaker McCarthy, every time this guy got into a negotiation with Biden or with Schumer, they took his lunch money. Look at the debt limit deal, where we've literally suspended the debt limit entirely until January of 2025, giving Biden just unlimited ability to rank up debt. See, Trump would never do that. Trump is a terrific negotiator. So if he's interested in the job, it's something he hasn't said to me quite yet. I think that if we end up with a Speaker Trump, a Speaker Jordan, or a Speaker Scalise, there will not be a single Republican in America who believes that we did not vastly upgrade the fighting force at the tip of the spear at the highest end of our leadership. These are all three great men. Jim Jordan is a personal mentor of mine. I have styled my work in the Congress after a lot of the successes I've seen from him on the House Judiciary Committee. Steve Scalise is one of the most inspirational people in all of American politics. I'll tell you this right now, Dan. If someone shot me in this job, I would be at home with my wife.
Yeah, I was going to say, the guy took a bullet.
This guy came back and fought, and we saw the personal grit and determination, the love of the institution that he has. So these are outstanding options. We would be so blessed to have either of these men in that role. And you know what? Trump's always a wild card. He may be coming to Washington on Tuesday. If so, I'll be eager to hear what he has to say.
That was my next statement here. We have a thing from the Daily Mail that does say he's talking about coming to the Hill on Tuesday to possibly chat about this. And he was getting so many calls, I think I might have been one of them, saying, please, sir, put your name in the hat for this. He put out this truth, and this is probably the most current one. He said, while I'm running for president, I have a 62-point lead over Republicans, up on Crooked Joe, despite the Democrats' massive lawfare, weaponization, election interference efforts. I'm up by 4 to 11 points over Joe, but they'll do whatever necessary to help with he'll do whatever necessary, rather, to help with the Speaker of the House selection in the short term, he says, until the final selection of a great Republican speaker is made. A speaker will help a new but highly experienced president, me, make America great again. That sounds like, to me, Matt, he's considering it then.
I don't know what to unwind. That struck me as a guy that was laser focused on winning the presidency again.
Of course.
But he does understand that we've got to have a great speaker, because I want the Congress to be better prepared for the second term of Donald Trump than we were the first term of Donald Trump. You know, and that's really why I'm doing a lot of this, to make sure that we've got great conservatives with vision in place to drive down spending, to make sure that we've got a process where a lot of the Trump agenda and Trump ideas that can drive economic growth, that can get our trade policies realigned, that can help with manufacturing in this country, can really come to fruition. Because time and again, whether it was on immigration or whether it was on regulatory reform or health care, I didn't really see Paul Ryan at his best when we needed a really strong speaker to help President Trump. So if we see that vision out to fruition, we are going to be able to achieve so much more for hardworking Americans.
Yes,
and that's really what this is all about.
I like to look forward, but you're right, Matt. If you go back to 16 and 17, the first 18 months, 2 years of the Trump administration, you had too many damn rhinos pushing back on him on real drastic policy that would have changed, which he did a lot of change, but he could have got so much more done if they would have worked with him. Anyway, let's move on. Are you worried about your future? I mean, there's some folks out there saying some pretty nasty stuff about you. They're talking about kicking you out of the caucus, the whole Republican Party, but I think they want you gone from Congress.
Yeah, I'm not a super popular guy here in Washington, D.C. Back in Florida's first congressional districts, folks sent me here with about 70% of the vote, so they seem to like the job I'm doing for them. But I don't work for the other Republican members of Congress, and I don't even work for the Speaker. I work for my voters, and my voters did not see enough happening in this Congress to justify the continuation of our leadership. They wanted to see us rip the Band-Aid off, turn the page, and that's precisely what we're doing. There have been a number of Republicans who've said that they plan to expel me from the House Republican Conference or maybe even Congress altogether. I want to fight back against that. I want to continue serving in the conference. And for my constituents, I would encourage everyone to go to mattgaetz.com, donate, help us fight back against these lies and smears. And I know when you engage in a bold effort like this, you make yourself a target. But, you know, in the sentiment of the great Nathaniel Hale, my only regret is that I have but one congressional career to sacrifice for my country.
Yeah, Matt, I don't think that you got into this to be a quiet mouse in the corner just voting the way the party wants you to vote. I've never felt that way about you. Two of the biggest things you brought up when you did this whole push to remove Kevin, it was obviously the debt and the spending. And when it comes to the spending, there was two things that you brought up in the multiple speeches as everyone watched you guys. We aired it, battled back and forth that day from the rhino sticking up for him to you tearing it all down. Two of the big things you brought up that I bring up all the time, the billions to Ukraine and our unsecure southern border. Let's begin first with the Ukraine spending. Biden approved another package, last week? I don't know how many million that is. Do you know what the actual debt is when it comes to how much we've spent on Ukraine? I lost track at 140 billion, I think. I don't even know where it's at.
Well, yeah, and the Senate wants another 20+ billion to be passed by the House of Representatives. And if you believe what the White House and Democrats said, and I don't necessarily take it at face value, but their claim is that Kevin McCarthy had made a secret deal in exchange for their vote on a continuing resolution to lash border security in our country with another 20-something billion for Ukraine,
of course,
and force that as one up or down vote. Now, look, you may have listeners who have different views than I do on the border or on Ukraine. Frankly, I'm a big fan of securing our border. I am not a big fan of us continuing our involvement in the war in Europe. Now, however you feel, those issues deserve their own dignity and their own vote separately. They should not be lashed together. How insulting to the Americans who are working in our Customs and Border Patrol that the only way we're going to have their back and do what's the right thing for them is if we shuttle another 20-something billion dollars to Ukraine. It's crazy, and I do not back that style of legislating.
Good for you. So today, I'm sure you saw the news. We have the headline there, guys. JoJo from, in August it was, we started auctioning off pieces of Trump's wall at the southern border. We were selling these pieces for pennies on the dollar. And then today, and I think because maybe the national media is actually covering it, and now the Biden regime is getting so much heat from Democrat mayors and Democrat leaders across the country because of this crisis, this invasion, now all of a sudden, show the headlines today, we're going to all of a sudden start building 20-some miles of wall in Texas. And immediately, did the radical folks on the left, from the environmentalists to the folks that think we should just bow down to every single illegal immigrant, came out and actually gave Joe some heat today about this. I can't believe the guy that ran on against Trump, I will not build the wall, a wall is racist, is all of a sudden now going to build a wall. And we put something together. I got to run it real quick, couple seconds, and we'll get your take on the backside. Hit it, guys.
We will not build a wall.
Walls don't work.
A racist and xenophobic wall.
We spent years investing in a faulty border wall that was never going to be an effective mechanism.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed on my administration.
It would waste taxpayer dollars on an ineffective wall. Again, an ineffective wall that can't even withstand heavy winds.
A wall is an immorality. It's not who we are as a nation.
There will not be another foot of wall built in my administration. Joe Biden, 2020. Matt Gaetz?
I think it's safe to say that the Overton window has moved on the wall and these issues of illegal immigration. When you have people like New York Mayor Eric Adams eulogizing sanctuary city policies and saying that these mass invasions of people into our country are destroying our iconic cities. They are destroying our environment. They're putting an incredible strain on our social safety net. It's easy to see why people from the right, center, left are all wanting a secure border. And the fact that Joe Biden has had to really revert to Trump policies shows us how meaningful and significant and successful those Trump-era policies were. Unfortunately, Joe Biden coming to this decision years late in his administration has allowed millions of people to come into our country without permission and without consequence. That's put our national security at risk. It's put our economy at risk, and it's put our national identity at risk. It is okay to build a wall. Like in the words of President Trump, we don't build these walls because we hate the people on the outside. We build them because we love the people on the inside. Nancy Pelosi doesn't mind living behind walls, and it's certainly not an immorality that Trump did it or that Biden's doing it now. The immorality is that Biden waited so long.
Well, and we know why he did it, and I've always wanted to ask you this. I don't know if I've ever asked you before. Do you think this was a direct attempt to change the electorate in the future? Because that's what I see here. 10 to 12 million illegals allowed in. We didn't vet 99% of them. They don't have court dates to return until 2032 or 5. I mean, what are you doing? You're going to take these millions, make them citizens, and then hopefully go, they're going to vote for us. We let them come in illegally and live here. That's what I think this whole plan is.
Right, and I think it's driven by a lot of the depopulation out of our urban centers, right? Like people elected Democrats in the urban areas of this country, then life really went downhill, so people left those urban centers, and now that those politicians need to replace the voters that trusted them, that they let down, with a new group of people. That's precisely why these urban centers became sanctuary cities, to bring in a new class of voters that they could dupe all over again with policies that had a failed track record.
Yeah, and let's think about it, Matt. They're coming from countries that are communist and socialist, so a little bit of control by the government in America, they're not going to mind. And then more control, they won't mind, because it's still a hell of a lot better place than where they're coming from. Matt, I know we're out of time, but man, it was so great to sit and chat with you about so many important things facing this great nation. I know we can make her great again, and I think you're one of those pillar guys that's going to be out there helping us to do so. I'll give you the final word. I have one final question. You took so much heat. You put yourself out there. There's a lot of politicians that would not risk that. What would your advice be to somebody out there, whether they're that city council member or that school board member or one of your colleagues in the House going, I'd love to stand up and speak up, but man, I'm so scared about retribution? What would you tell them, Matt?
Well, you have to first understand that these seats and these positions don't belong to any of us. We are just like sand passing through the hourglass. Our job is to be representatives of the people, and often we're only able to achieve wins for them if we're willing to take risks and put our own political careers and our own personal fortunes at risk too. The risks that we have to take in government today, nothing compared to the Founding Fathers. I walk underneath their murals and statues each and every day, and I'm inspired to have the chance to serve the people of Florida and the United States Congress in this manner.
Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, what a trip it has been. I'll tell you, the last 3 years on this show and having you as a guest and watching you become the leader that you are today, it's a pleasure, sir. Keep the fight up.
Thank you, brother.
You take care.
All right, job's not done. We'll stay after it.
Damn right it's not. See you later.